Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
All right, so go ahead and introduce or give a round of applause to Arun. Thank you, Arun.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session. I'm Arun, and I'm a dev in the Windows team. Specifically, I work for the printing and imaging technologies. And today we'll be discussing about developing a casual game for Windows 8. And this is for beginners like you and me, and hopefully experts in you would find something interesting out of today. So sometime last year, I got interested in developing casual games during the RTM phase of Windows 8. And I started exploring the options on what are the tools which are available for writing games for Windows. And this is what I felt. So if you are venturing into game development for the first time, be prepared to be overwhelmed with the number of choices you will be facing. So I spent some time looking over the choices and figuring out what exactly is my skill level and which is going to fit my time frame. So I want to have a quick ramp for learning it, and so that I can start working on the game as fast as I can. So I'll give you a quick summary of what I found during my investigations. So as you know, Windows 8 supports C++, C#, and HTML5 JavaScript. So if you want to do something like a very highly professional game like Halo, which has some 3D effects, and you should be able to control the camera position and angle and lighting and shading and all that, then you should be doing DirectX or use engines like Unreal. If you are comfortable with C#, then there is this very popular framework called Unity, which is the most popular cross-platform development framework out there. And if you are okay with casual games where you want the user to just play for a few minutes or I don't know, a few hours, like Angry Birds, yeah.
I was going to ask, can you mention for each of these, how much it costs, or if it's free? What do you have?
Sure. I think Unreal and Unity are paid. I don't know the exact cost structures, but I think we should be able to look it up fairly quickly. But I'm currently going to focus on this particular tool called Constructive, right? So HTML5 JavaScript is fairly new to the game development space, but the game developers are quickly adopting it, irrespective of the fact that it's pretty much nascent. So theoretically speaking, you can write a HTML5 JavaScript game with just Notepad and access to a browser. But you don't really want to do that because there are some rich tools available. Although there are some popular games which are built from the scratch. For example, if you have heard about Cutthroat, and cutthroat.ie is a website. So they have completely rewritten their game for JavaScript and HTML5. And there is this other game called Contrajour. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's also a very cool game. It's contrajour.ie is a website, and you should be able to take a look at their game. So those two games are written from the scratch using the HTML5 JavaScript's canvas element. And there are some middle-level tools like Create.js and Impact.js. I think those are free. They give you a set of helper libraries which help you start your coding pretty fast. But still, you need to have a pretty good understanding of how to do JavaScript programs. The one we are going to talk about today is called Constructive, which is a very easy way to write a game or even mock up a game if you want to do a professional game or a 3D game. And this one does not require you to have a understanding of JavaScript. You don't need to know JavaScript at all. So that's what we are going to focus on today. So I've structured this talk into two major areas. The first half, we will take a look at an introduction to the Constructive tool itself and give you a taste on how easy it is to develop a game or prototype a game. And the second part, I will focus on a particular plugin which I authored for Constructive, which helps to bring all the rich Windows 8 features to Constructive. So that's all with my slides, and let's start off with developing a game. I'm going to try developing the game from the scratch, and let's see how far I can proceed. All right, so let me launch. I bought their software. I don't know why I get that. Okay, so let's launch Constructive. This is not a free edition. I have a license. Okay, and let's do the most natural thing which we do, which is File, New Project. Okay, so as you can see, Constructive comes with a bunch of built-in templates, ranging from, I don't know, you can type whatever you want. Let's say jump. I have an infinite jumping game template. Let's say I want a car game. Sure. Anything else?
Bird.
What?
Bird.
Bird? I don't know.
Angry bird.
So bird is a, I don't know, scrolling game, right? So you can type scroll, and you should be able to get, the scrolling game behavior. Anyway, that's not fun, and let's do a simple blank project so that we can understand the basics, right? So I'm going to create a blank project, and this is a fairly simple IDE. Let me just close this. And what you have here is there is a project view over here, and you have all the items which are listed here, which is currently part of your project. And whenever you select an item over here, your properties window would show the corresponding properties for the item selected. This is fairly basic. So the only interesting thing over here is the layout. Let's talk about that. So layout, you can think of a layout as a uninterestingly, pre-configured set of objects which are going to appear on the screen. A layout can be one layout per level, or one layout per the title screen for your app, or one layout for your menu, etc. So let me make this layout as level 1. So we are going to start designing the level 1 for my game, right? So we are going to do a platform style game, for example, a Mario style jumping game where the main character jumps around on platforms and collects stuff and jumps on enemies, right? So I'm going to change the layout size to something big. I'll just zoom out to show you that this is the whole layout size here. And as we said, this is a horizontal scrolling platform, so you will have more space for the player to jump. And another thing you should note here is that there is this little dotted line over here which represents the window which is currently visible to the user, right? So for a Mario style game, you will have a long strip of layout, and your window would be one part of it. So that's what we are trying to design here. All right. Okay, so now that we have the layout set up, let's add some background to this layout. So the way you do it is you can either right click, insert new object, or you can go to object types, insert new object, or you can double click. So I'm going to do double click from now, right? So we want to add a background to this layout. So there is this object called tile background. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to just place it over here. I don't know, anywhere. This opens up an image editor, and I'm going to open up an image which I already have prepared for. So here is the background for our game, and the background shows up here. Cool. I'll close this, and you can see that this object is resizable. So I'm going to resize it to fit the whole screen. So from the name, you can understand that this is a tile background, which is a very common technique used in games, where you take one small image and then kind of tile it over there. And if you are smart enough to design the tile, then it would look as if it's a whole new image, right? So in this case, I'm going to position it at the top left, and I know the layout size, so I'm going to fill it in. or you can do it, with mouse. Okay, so we have the background set up nicely. Okay, so we are going to add more and more objects to this layout, like the player and enemy and the land on which he would jump and all that. So by mistake I would drag this and then it would spoil my careful positioning. So what I'm going to do is I'll create layers. So let's introduce layers, the concept of layers to you. So every layout can have layers. If you have worked with Photoshop or GIMP, then you would know layers, right? But for the benefit of who are not introduced to it, let me try to explain that. So you can think of layers as transparent sheets laid out on top of them, and the bottommost transparent sheet, think of it as having the background, and the next transparent sheet you can add the player, and the next one you can have enemies and all that. So in this case, our bottommost layer is going to be the background. I'm going to rename it to background, and I'm going to lock it in place. So this means that I cannot select this background anymore, and it's locked in position, which is nice. And I'm going to add another layer and name it as main, into which I'll drop all my main players and enemies and everyone else. So let's have that main layer selected, and let's add the player, the central character to this game. So I'm going to just double click and add a sprite. If you're not familiar with sprite, a sprite simply means an animated object in the gaming world. So I'm just adding a sprite, and notice how the crosshairs as a tooltip which says main, which means that we are going to drop this whatever object we are trying to add into the main layer. And again we get the similar image editor view here, but this is a little bit different this time because we chose the sprite. So let's import the sprite. I'm just right clicking here and import sprite, and I'm going to import the player sprite. Let's start off with the idle animation. So Constructive gave me 11 frames for this particular idle animation, and this one is just empty. I'm going to delete it. And as you can see, there is some empty area around this player which might take some space. So I'm going to just remove it by cropping it. Shift crop will remove it from all the frames. So I'm just going to do that. All right. So now we have the player over here, and there is this concept of hotspots, which means what is the place of contact for this particular object. So this is a platform game, and this player will be jumping on solids, right? So the hotspot is going to be the bottom. I'm going to do a bottom here, and then make it available to the whole animation. And that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to set the animation to loop and preview it. So he's nicely idling there, right? So I'm going to change his name to idle animation and set the speed to a little bit faster. Cool. So I'll just drag him here, and let's just run the game. So you have created the game which runs on IE, and your player is idling there, right? He's waiting for your commands. All right. So now let's add some platform for him to jump on. I'll add more sprites here, and again on the main layer I'll do the same thing. Import sprite strip, and I'll get some tiles. I just happen to know that this sprite sheet is made up of 144 frames, so I just say it over here and let construct to take care of splitting it up. So it's actually doing some work splitting up the huge sprite sheet into 144 images, and we got it now. So the first one is empty. I'm just going to delete it.
So you've got one big image that you're telling the thing that this is actually.
Yeah, that's a standard way in the gaming world, where they have a concept called sprite sheet, where they lay out everything and you can split them up whatever the way you want. So that's how they distribute the assets. So if you go to professional websites, they will sell sprite sheets for one theme. For example, like an aircraft based theme, they will sell a sprite sheet where you have all kinds of aircrafts and everything, so you can split it up. Okay, so this one I'm going to use it as just a placeholder. so I don't want it to animate at all. So I'm going to set the speed to 0. And let's zoom in a bit and then show you how or what I'm trying to achieve here. Okay, so I'm trying to create a floating land on which the player is able to jump on, right? So so I happen to know that the frame numbers 1 and a few other frames are interesting to me. I'm going to control drag to create a copy of this, and control drag, and I'm going to make 1.4 is another frame I want, and 14 is another frame not 14, 13 I think. Yeah, so I'm going to do some snap to grid and then try to align these guys so that it actually looks like a land. Alright, so if I run this, sure, there is a floating piece of land, right? Okay, so now is the most interesting part for this demo. I'm going to do some trick and add a placeholder here, just like the usual way what we have been doing, and set the origin to bottom. I'll explain what this is all about. So I have created a, let me turn off the snap to grid. So I have created a little square which is going to be the bounding box for this player. So let me make the opacity 50 so that I can see through it, and I'm going to create it as a bounding box for this player, right? Okay, so I don't want the the props which he has and other things getting in the way. So at this point we have everything set up for the player to jump on the solid, right? This is where Constructive comes in and gives us saves us a lot of time. So if you look at the properties, there is something called behaviors, which comes built in with Constructive for all the projects, which help you assign a kind of behavior to each object, right? So I'm going to assign a platform style behavior to this object, and let's see what that means. So I have selected this box which I will call player box, and I'll call this as player. So I have added this platform behavior to this player box, right? And I'm going to declare this as a solid behavior, make it as a solid. All right, so that's what I did. I haven't written any code, so let's see what happens. So I'm using my keyboard to jump. If you look at the the bounding box, it's jumping around. So we did not write any code, and we already got the platform behavior for free, right? So all we need to do is bind this player to the bounding box and hide the binding box, right? So I'm going to hide the box by saying initial visibility to invisible, and I'm going to go to the event sheet. Okay, so this is another little new concept. So event sheet is the way you program with Constructive, and whatever you have in here would be executed 60 times a second, and it would be rendered on your screen, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for every tick, position the player to the player box. Okay, so every tick we are asking the system to position the player to the player box. So now we have hidden the player box, and now let's see what happens. So that's it. So your player is jumping around. So there is some more scope of improvement here. For example, if you want mirroring the player, if you click on the left key, you want the player to face the correct direction, right? So let's do that by adding a keyboard object. It's going to take 5 seconds to have it available. That's it. And I'm going to add on key pressed. When the right key is pressed, what do I want? I want the player to mirror, not mirrored, and when our left key is going to be pressed, I'll say I want the player to be mirrored. Okay, so let's run. So he's mirrored, right? Okay, so we have a basic setup here over here, and as you can see, I can add more animations to this particular player. So in the interest of time, I'm just jumping on to one of the checkpoints I have, where I have added, you know, the jump animations and jump to run animations and all that to this particular player to help me with getting on to the next part. Okay, so I'll show you the animations what we did. So for last time we saw here there was only one animation, and now we have added a bunch of animations, that's it. And we need to have some logic tied in as well. So all it does is, if the platform is moving, then set the animation to idle to run, and when the animation idle to run is done, go for a run. And this is just a simple state machine which you can figure out, right? And if you run this, you will have those nice, you know, the run animations and jump animations and all that. Okay. Another interesting thing which we should do is, for the player, I already added it. So there is this behavior called scroll to behavior, which means that the screen will follow the player. Let's remove it and see the difference. So without scroll to behavior, if the player jumps off, he's not shown in the screen, right? So let's add a scroll to behavior. And now let's see what happens. So let him jump off the cliff. So it follows him, right? Okay. So now that we have the player, let's add some enemies over here. So I'm going to make a copy of this, the floating land, by control drag. One more and one more. Okay. And I would like to add a enemy to it. But before that, let me adjust the window size. 640 480 sounds 1995. Now you can see that the dotted lines are, you know, expanded so that you have a bigger window. So I'm going to add a sprite for the enemy, and I have a few enemies. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to import a sprite sheet. I'll delete this, and I do the shift crop to remove extra space around it, and I'll set the origin to bottom and apply to whole animation, and I'm going to set the loop to yes. And Snail is Snail, so it can be slow. Okay, and Snail is also like the player actually, right? He's also a platform style object, and he wants to move around on the platform and jump off the platform and all that. So let's give him the platform behavior as well. And if we do this, if we run this, we'll note something funny, right? So the control is applied for both the platform objects. So we don't want that. So we will remove this guy as being controlled. Nope, I don't want to control you. And now they are independent. So you can jump. That's nice. Okay, now we have added the snail, and the player is ready. And the next thing obviously is to make a way for letting the player kill the snail and the enemy kill the player, right? So how do we do that? Let's do the player on collision with another object, the another object being, I should rename it. Let's do it again. Player on collision with another object, the another object being enemy. Okay, so this is going to execute whenever the system detects a collision with the snail enemy. So we want to do a couple of things here. One is, if the player jumps on the snail, obviously the player wins, and if he is coming into contact with the snail on the sides, the snail wins, right? So let's do the first case, and I'm going to add a sub event. And here I'm going to say is falling. So if he is falling and he is colliding with the snail enemy, then we know that the snail should be killed. That's it. And the else case means the snail wins, right? In that case, we would want to destroy the player. Let's not destroy the player, but we'll flash the player saying that okay, he's under trouble. So for that, we have a behavior called flash, which we will add. Okay, we have the flash available, and we can make the player flash. So it's going to flash for 1 second. That's it. So let's try that. So the snail is killed, and when we come into contact, and when you come into contact with, okay. Oh no, okay, fine. So you're supposed to be a little bit away. That's fun, right? You can edit your game. Yeah, now he's flashing. So that's what we wanted to achieve. And you can add some little bit, realism here by, having the platform jump a bit when you jump on the snail. That you can achieve by setting some offset 700 pixels. So this will give you that nice jump effect. You see that jump effect? So that's what we got. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Okay, so now the obvious thing next to do is to add some scoring capabilities to your game. So let's add some scores to the game. Now is a good point to talk about parallax. I don't know if you guys noticed. So if you go to start screen and you scroll around, the background, the stars in the back, they scroll a bit slower than the foreground, which gives you a nice depth effect. And this is the same techniques used in all the popular games like Angry Birds and all that. When the bird flies, the background scrolls smoothly, which gives you that nice depth effect. The more layers you add, the more depth you would get. So let's add some depth to our game by setting the background to move a little bit slower than the foreground. You have a parallax, you can say move 50% slower than the foreground. And we were talking about scores. So I'm going to add a layer for scores and call it heads up display. And it's always going to be on the top. And obviously you want to always see the score, right? You don't want, your score should be always in the fixed position, either top left or somewhere, right? So we'll make the parallax 0, which means it's going to be fixed, right? So I'm going to add a text box. and notice how we are placing it on the HUD layer, right? And I'm going to call it score. Start off with 0, and we'll make something like light color, and we'll make it big and visible. I like impact font, and I'll make it something big. Okay. So now you can see that we are going to have the score appear at the top left, and it won't scroll away. It would just stay there because we have set the parallax to 0. It would just stay there, which is good. So how do we keep track of the score? Obviously, we declare a variable, and initial value is obviously 0, and you can see that it appears over here saying that global number, its score is 0, and I'm sure you can guess the next step. So I'm going to add a score here, add 10 to the score, right? That's it. So whenever you kill a snail, you get 10 points. And one more thing we have to do is update the text. I'm going to say score colon concatenation with score. So if I did all this, then we should get 10 points when I jump on that snail. Okay, so we got 10 points. Cool. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show, to give you a taste on how to go about developing games with Construct 2. And let's move on to the next section, where we wanted to talk about how the plugin enables bringing in some of the rich Windows 8 features into Construct 2, right? So for that, I will, I think this is going to crash. Don't save. Okay, so I'm going to have a final, not final, but better version here to show some more things which could be done here. So I'm going to play it a bit to show you. You can see that I have made the snail move around a bit. There are some points to be collected with this fruit things which are rotating, and some coins to be collected, and your level is complete. So that's what we have as the game right now. And let's try to export this to Windows 8. So you can go to File and Export Project, and it will give you a bunch of options. Notice how Windows Phone 8 is also present there. So you can export to Windows 8, and that's it. What Construct 2 is now doing is it's creating a Visual Studio 2012 HTML5 JavaScript project and packing up all your resources which you are using in this game and creating a project file for you. So once it's ready, we should be able to hit F5 and it should just work. So I'm going to open the destination folder and locate my project, open it in Visual Studio, and I just need to do one thing to choose this test certificate. Okay, and it's ready to run. So you have your Windows 8 game, which is pretty much ready to submit to your store. So it's just exactly the one which we played in IE, and it's just that. So at this point, I realized that the Construct 2 gaming environment is missing out on super cool features which we introduced in Windows 8. For example, like the settings charm, integration with settings charm, roaming settings, sensor support, and the snap view, all these things. So if you think about the target audience, they are so used to programming in Construct 2 with drag and drop and the way I showed you for the last 30 minutes, which is pretty very simplified form of game development. So I thought that if we fill in the gap by bringing in the rich features from Windows 8 made available to Construct 2 IDE, then more people would start using the Windows 8 features. So I went ahead and wrote a plugin called Metro, which I don't know why I named that way. It was cool at the time. And let's see how it helps us. All right, so I showed you that you can export the game and it's already available. I'm going to show you the value adds which this particular plugin provides when you use the plugin. So it's just like any other object for this project, Constructive project. So I'm going to right click and insert new object, and this is a plugin which I wrote, which I talked about, and I'm going to insert it. And just like any other object, it will be available soonish, and we have the Metro object available, right? So you can see that I have a bunch of features over here which we will talk about it in a while. And if we export this now, let's see what features we get for free. So now Constructive is composing your project, but it's also adding some features which I wrote as a part of the Metro plugin and compiling everything into a JavaScript, right? So in fact, you should be able to open up the generated JavaScript and look at whatever code there is. It's all readable. So we go back here and sure reload, and I'll do this again. And now let's run this. So at the first look, it doesn't look anything different, obviously, right? I'm not going to add special graphics for you just because you added the plugin, right? So the first thing you would notice is that if you go to the settings charm, I have added the preferences help and about by default, right? So you get this for free. So you get the audio and sound effects, switches and everything added for you for free, and you can have your help page in your settings charm for free, and you can have your about page in your settings charm for free. This is all just adding the plugin, and once you export it, you get all this for free. It saves a lot of time for you, right? You don't want to redo the whole thing. Oh, I want to do an about page, then how do I? You have to start learning JavaScript, and how do I integrate it with Constructive? It's all done for you. You just export it with it, and you got it. And we know that Windows 8 supports Snap View, and most of the games are designed for full screen playing. So this is my default screen where I can say press full screen to continue playing, and of course the markers here you can replace it with whatever you want, right? So once I click this, you'll be taken back to the full screen. So these are some little conveniences which you get for free if you do that plugin, and your app would feel more natural with Windows 8's paradigms. Okay, so that's what you get for free. So what else can you do with some more effort? One of my most favorite features in Windows Store apps is the roaming settings. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. So it's the concept where if you have your app installed in a computer with Microsoft account connected, and you store something on that PC, Windows will take care of roaming those settings to every other PC for that user, right? So which means that, for example, in a game environment, it's very easy to store the high scores in one PC. For example, you are playing on Surface, and you want to store the high score in Surface, and when I launch it in the laptop or some other PC, then it should show the high score, right? Because they all roam magically, and you don't have to do anything special, right? So when I wrote this plugin, I started realizing that in order to demonstrate all the features that this plugin support, I need to have a kind of sample app so that people can look at what's possible, and to vet that this is actually a working plugin and you can actually use it for production environment. So I kind of wrote this Breakout Clone. This is an app in the store which I kind of call it as a sample for my plugin, and I installed this app in this machine for the first time. I haven't played on this, and if I go to these levels, you can see that all my high scores and stars and the level unlocks are all populated here. So if I had not played it, it would be the lock buttons all the way, but because I'm using the roaming settings, I get all this for free. I'm just storing it in locally, and it just roams, and it's available in all my PCs. So I'll get back to this app a bit later when we talk about particular features. So I'll show you how to do the roaming settings here. So this is very similar to the one which we did earlier. It just has some more bells and whistles with I've created some groups for nicely organizing the events. So let's say you want to store the score in the roaming storage. How do you do that? It's as simple as you search for roaming, set roaming value, and you can specify the key as high score, and you can save the score as a high score, right? So what this does is, behind the scenes, when you generate a Windows 8 project, this will put in the necessary Win.js API, which calls into the roaming API of Windows 8, and then stores your score into the store, right? So which means that this will be available in all your PCs. And let's say, for example, you have stored it here, and you are launching it on a fresh PC, right? So you want to retrieve whatever you stored. So how do you retrieve that? What you can do is you can say so during the start of the game, what you can do is, let's say I want to populate the score from previous session which you played on Surface. What I can do is I can do system set value metro dot roaming value high score. So this would retrieve the value you stored somewhere else and make it available to the other instance. So that's very convenient. So that's how I used this is how I wrote this particular app, so that whenever you play, it doesn't matter if I for example get a couple of stars in this, and if I go back home, my level will be unlocked and my high score will be available. So that's how you do the roaming storage. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was so as a part of the app, you also get, for example, resetting the data you stored. So let's see, go to preferences, and so this one would clear off all the settings you have saved in roaming storage or local storage. So you can click reset, and then do you really want to clear the stores? So this will clear off all the unlocked levels and your high scores and all that. So you get all this for free with this particular plugin. And of course, live tiles. So you want to add support for live tiles from your game. For example, whenever you detect that the player has crossed a high score or unlocked a level, you want to publish a shout out saying that, hey, you have cleared a new level, congratulations, or whatever, right? So how do you do that? You can do metro update live tile. So that's it. So once you do that, we'll take care of the magic, how to create the XML for publishing this and making it available for the white tile and all that. So this is how you get this particular this particular message from my app. So that's how I publish this particular message. And another important thing with Windows 8, which Constructive doesn't have a way to tap in, is the monetization model. So we have the concept of trial app, we have the concept of in-app purchases, we have the concept of advertisements, right? So you can do something like metro is in trial mode, and you can expose certain levels and not expose certain levels. You can have more kind of enemies, you can have superpowers, you can have the shooting special bullets and all that, based on whether you are in a trial mode or not. And you can also have in-app purchases. So you can check whether the user has purchased something special. So you can check is in-app purchases no ad. You have to configure this in a special way. I have all the details in my blog, but this is how it works. You can say, you can check whether the current running system has purchased or made a purchase for this in-app. Then you don't show the ad. So that's what I did for this app. So if you go to charms, settings, purchase, so it's actually contacting the Windows Store and then retrieving the, if you want to remove the advertisements, please go ahead and upgrade it for whatever dollars there. And if you click upgrade, this will actually go ahead and invoke the purchase dialog and complete your purchase. And once you go ahead and buy it, when you come back, you can check again, and then you would know that, oh, this guy has purchased no ad experience, and you can remove that ad. So that's one way to structure your game. And I have written this blog about this trials and in-app purchases in quite a decent detail, and if you want, you can take a look at that. And I also wrote a this one. So this one is a summary on where somebody was asking a question today, what is the good way to monetize your game, right? Like, do you want a free app, do you want a fully featured paid app, time limited trial app, or a feature limited trial app, or in-app purchases, or whatever, or in-app advertisements, and everything else. So this is kind of a summary on what are the various options available for you and how you can go about doing that. So apart from that, I'm from the team which exposed the sensors API in Windows 8. My manager wrote those, the WinRT API. So I also exposed those sensors API. Where is it? Not this. Yeah. So you can see here. You can see here that you can say use the accelerometer, gyrometer, gyrometer, and inclinometer, and light sensors and everything, and you can read the whatever values that are provided by the sensors and make it, all the cool games which use the sensors to position the gamer and all that. So that's also available as a part of this plugin. So apart from that, if you have played around with trial apps and purchasing in-app experiences, then you would know that you need to stage before submitting to the store. So when you develop the app, you cannot rely on because your app is already not in the store. When you issue a request, it would fail. So you cannot complete the testing for your app. So that's why they have an elaborate scheme for making the app testable with a local setup. So I have taken care of that as well. And when you say purchase test mode, we'll take care of doing the magic, saying that, oh, okay, so this is a testing mode, and we would do the the fake messages saying that, okay, your app purchase completed successfully or failed and all that. And whenever you want to really submit to the store, you can turn this to false, and then you're all set. So that's it from my side for today. So this is my blog, and I kind of spent, I don't know, few weeks over there, and I released 10 releases of this plugin every 2 weeks or something, and tried to cover all the various Windows 8 features available out there. So that's pretty much from my side today, and hopefully you would feel hopefully that's what I thought, and hopefully you feel the same. Okay, questions?
Yeah, how did you handle suspend and resume?
How do you handle suspend and resume? So there is this. So I have the plugin has a model for pause. So you can detect the handle for pause, and then the callback for suspend and invoke pause for your game.
Does Constructive handle like game state or like management for you? Like
Yes, by default they just freeze the game. So for example, in the game which I wrote, right? So let's say I'm here, and if I switch away, the game is already frozen. Oh. So whenever I switch away from the game, let's say I'm playing the game, and whenever I switch away from the game, like pressing the start button, and when I go back to the game, it's already in the paused state, because I handled that by saying that, hey, we have received the suspend event, just pause. Yeah. Yep.
What is the performance of the framework like?
How is the performance of the framework? Good question. So I have tested with Surface, and if for a simple game, it is just fine. But when you add a lot of sprites, unless you are doing some optimizations, it can become a little bit sluggish.
What's a lot?
What's a lot?
20, 30, 40?
I've seen 60 FPS.
Are you talking about a lot? You said a lot of sprites.
Sprites, yeah. So this game was having some issues on Surface. Whatever I'm showing here, because no, this one had a lot of sprites, because I developed this is my first game, so I was not optimizing it properly, so there may be too many sprites involved here. Yeah.
What was your optimization like? I mean, lowering the number of sprites or what?
Yeah, so like we talked about sprite sheet, I did not use sprite sheets. I used single image for every break or whatever. So that concept I was not aware when I was starting on this. So that might help a bit.
How do you do full screen this thing without actually choosing a specific screen size?
Yeah, good question. I should have shown that. So you remember we changed the layout size to, not this, the window size to 1366/768. So if you make it 1366/768 and set this property full screen in browser to anything other than any of the letterbox scale or letterbox integer scale, Constructive takes care of magnifying it to that particular resolution or particular 16:9 resolution. So even if you have a like a bigger resolution, then your game would be nicely fitting in.
You're saying like design for 16:9 and just ask it to scale.
Exactly. So that's why I always say just design for 1366/768, and you should get everything else for free, and you will get the black bars for every other weird resolution. Yeah.
Does it support the like the touch things like pinch to zoom and swipe and all that?
I haven't tried pinch to zoom, but you get touch for free just like anything else. So I actually have a touch screen, and I can touch this and everything works fine. So I haven't played around with the pinch to zoom and all that.
What about multi-touch?
Multi-touch I have not played, but in fact,
Plugin for multi-touch.
oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So Constructive supports other platforms as well, right?
Yeah.
So you tried submitting it there and performance and what, I mean, how did that experience go?
So I haven't submitted to any other platform yet. So I don't know the answer to that question. But from looking at their forums and support aliases, it's a hugely active community, and they are very responsive. So they release an update every 2 weeks, and they're very responsive. Yeah. Yep.
Where did you get your artwork?
Can you repeat that?
Where did you get your artwork?
I did it myself.
Did you? Now, did you have audio files also?
Yes, actually I have audio files, but it's not connected. Yeah.
But you don't know. Do you know if there's like for what is it? Elance. Do you know if they do? There's audio files. People do audio files too.
Or are there other ways of getting audio files?
So for the whatever audio which I used for this project, when I purchased the Constructive license, it came up with a bunch of music files. So I chose a background music and the ball hitting bat music and all that from their collection. That's what was enough for me. But there are a lot of Creative Commons libraries out there where you can get free music or you can purchase.
Sound effects.
Yeah, sound effects.
Constructive also, I think, on the website you can buy assets.
Yeah, they also sell packs.
On which website?
On the same website, the Constructive website.
Oh, okay.
There are asset packs.
I like your artwork.
Custom fonts, do they allow you to import fonts?
Sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Fonts.
Custom fonts.
Yeah.
Custom fonts. So you can choose whatever fonts are installed on that particular machine. That's it.
Can you
As far as I know.
with your game though?
I am not familiar how to do that. I haven't figured that out. So I just stick to Impact because it looked decent enough. Yeah. But I see where you're going at. But I don't know how to do that. Yep.
You can add any custom CSS properties that you want, and so then you can go ahead and package your font like you do in a web platform.
I see. Yeah.
When you're setting up, the events and the sub-events, et cetera,
Yeah.
you have multiple actions per event and
Yeah.
per sub-event. Is there a limit to those? Can you set it up, the little angry cookie person falls off and is destroyed, et cetera? Is there an upper limit on what you can do with that?
No. So for the free edition, I think they have an upper limit of number of total events to be 100, I think. And for licensed version, you don't have any limits. Yeah, you can go whatever version, whatever complications you want.
And I think the free version, they don't want you to publish games anyways.
Sure. You can publish
Cannot
games
get in.
if you are making it as a free game.
Yeah, you cannot do commercial.
You cannot have ads and sell it. Yeah.
What software did you use to create your artwork?
So I came across this website, 2D game art for developers, and Inkscape is the website. Inkscape is great because you can do vector graphics, so you can scale it to whatever size you want. Another interesting thing to note here is that, so for the these tiles and splash screen and all that, for Windows 8 you have to supply a variety of versions for these images, one scaled for 100 and another one for 180 and 200 and something else. So that's very easy if you have a program like Inkscape, which works with non-lossy formats, so that you can scale it and then easily export it and you're done. Inkscape. Yeah. That's a freeware. It's
If you ever
free.
try to use Expression,
I'm sorry?
if you ever try to use Expression Design?
Expression blend?
Expression Design. Does
No.
it export formats besides Snail?
So nothing you can actually send to a graphic artist if you actually want to have print with 3D Photoshop or Inkscape. It's like, curious if you don't have any success with it.
Yeah, I've only given it a half a chance.
Yeah.
Can you debug through Constructive, or you have to go back to Visual Studio and debug stuff?
So because so debugging through Constructive is not very straightforward, I think. But I haven't had a problem which actually was worth debugging through Constructive. But while developing the plugin, I had to obviously debug the generated JavaScript to make sure that I'm calling into the right Binati API and all that. So I definitely did debug with Visual Studio. Yeah. Yeah.
Does Constructive provide any kind of physics calculations, like physics?
Physics, yeah. So they have a physics behavior. I think I can maybe quickly show a. So yeah, that's a template. You have the physics over there. So it basically uses box 2D. Yeah.
So in order to actually change the code, you have to export it to Visual Studio.
did you find yourself ever have to do that, or is the controls they provide so good that you actually write the entire thing in there and just export it at the end?
That's right. They have everything which you need pretty much. And in fact, I mean, because I wrote a plugin, you can also write a plugin if you find something lacking, right?
Can you do multi-page projects? Like, I understand that you can do one layout. How do you do multi-page projects? Is it just like showing and hiding layouts, or is it like you can?
Yeah. So this one, right? This is one layout. This is one layout. So I transition from this one to the next layout by calling a system.goTo layout. So they provide this. Yeah. So you can transition between layouts, and you can have your own state machine on which layout you are, and based on some numbering scheme, you can say, oh, he's in layout 1 and 7, and then when I click next, skip level, then I would know that I have to go to 1.8, right?
So they unload all the assets.
That's all taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does your plugin provide for ad support or some way to add ads to your game?
Yes, advertisement support, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I do have a way to add the advertisements. I kind of detailed it in this. Let me see if I have a post on it. Yep, so I have a post on it, and this will take you through how to actually add ads to your game. So that's how I did this for this game. Yeah.
Okay, let's give Arun a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you.